Okay, we'll start the City of North St. Paul City Council regular meeting for September 21st. If we could, Jenny, call the order. Pledge of Allegiance. Stand for. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome everybody. At this time, Jenny, if you take the roll.
Councilmember Thorson?
Here.
Councilmember Peterson?
Here.
Councilmember Wong?
Here.
Councilmember Cole?
Here.
Mayor Furlong?
Here, quorum is present. Motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved, Your Honor.
Moved by Councilmember Peterson,
Second.
second by Councilmember Thorson. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. We don't have any presentations. We have the consent agenda, which is the September 7th workshop minutes, the September 7th regular meeting minutes, September 8th budget workshop minutes, the general claims of $701,745.72. We have the resolution approving acceptance of donations received in August. We have the monthly building permit report, approved pay voucher number 14 for North St. Paul 2020 Street and Utility Improvement Project. And we have the development contract and planned unit development agreement for the 7th Street Townhomes. At this time, if any council member wants to pull anything, they can do so at this time. Councilmember Thorson.
Yeah, I'd like to pull item H.
So H, we will add that to I on the regular meeting. Anybody else? If not, motion for the consent agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Cole,
I'll second.
second by Councilmember Thorson. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, the motion carries. At this time, the meeting's open to the public, and I do have a couple people who'd like to talk. And first one, John Schmall. And it looks like more computer work.
Yeah, you're continuing to prove that I haven't got a clue as to how to deal with the North St. Paul computer system when it deals with information for the meetings. And today I had to call twice to say, what? I thought I had a half a brain. I don't have a half a brain in dealing with your computer system. And everybody's helpful, but I don't think I should have to call in order to figure out how to get information about the meeting. Today it happened to be the information that is in the packet that you click on in order to expand, to read. The title is not indicative of what is there. We're going to be talking about tonight, you are, about the CIP onward to 2031. The item you had to click on was just the date 2022. I talked to Dan about it, and it's a transfer of files with his subject that he's placed on it into the agenda that does not comport with what is in this case, the resolution that covered 10 years. His only had the 1 year, but it really did cover the 10 years. And it's just a pain. It really is. And I'm sitting here on my phone going through the agenda, and I realized that sometimes you can actually expand by using your fingers. But some of the items you can't. You've got to go up on the top and hit the plus sign. It's just crazy. And I'm 78 years old, and you're trying your best to make sure I don't get any further.
Well, I don't think we're trying our best not to do that. Thank you, John. RT? Welcome.
Actually, I'm starting to enjoy coming to council meetings. I learn a lot about the city, and while I was driving by today, I'm going to give Councilmember Thorson a little bit of heck right now because I saw his dad mowing the lawn outside their business.
That's what happens when you have kids. You still,
Hey, I've tried. He won't, he
wouldn't
enjoys
let
it too much. He won't let me do it, so.
Good excuse. All right. Quick update. We had our first competition. Our fall league has started. I do have a pretty major concern about that, though, because we have an elevator that's not functioning properly. It makes a lot of noise, arguably dangerous. It's going to stop. I notified the city over a month ago, and it hasn't been fixed. That needs to be fixed. It needs to be fixed right away. Again, we have customers coming in again on Saturday that'll probably use it, and it just needs to get done. I know the city is busy with a lot of things, and I don't envy your position being understaffed. I've been to the council meetings for the past 3 months, I get it, but this is something that's dangerous. And it's not only a danger for the people that are in it, but if we turn it off, now it becomes an ADA issue, and we don't have access to the entire building. So we get that fixed like immediately, that'd be awesome. Looking for some updates on things as far as the ballasts that are potentially out, the roof that's being replaced. And also wanted to mention that I saw the EDA plan. And part of the EDA, in their mission, it does say that not only are they there to attract businesses, but they're also there to retain businesses. I haven't been contacted by the EDA. I know that's something that we are working on, and at least that we are attempting to come to an agreement on. But we haven't been approached by them at all on how we can be retained. We have 150,000 people that come into the city every single year. 150,000, and these are people that have money to spend. They're going to come to a downtown, they're going to come to a new restaurant that's in downtown, and they're going to utilize it. I was talking to the commander from the VFW today. He says our people go into the VFW and they have tacos and beer, and they come back and watch some more volleyball. So we know we bring a lot to the city. Last time I spoke here, I mentioned that we raised $11,000 for the high school program. We're valuable here, and we're wondering why 8 years ago we were contacted by the EDA, and we're a part of their video that the city has on their website that is utilized to attract new businesses to come, and we spoke highly of the city. We still do and still would. Why we haven't been contacted so we can be retained. If it is the plan to redevelop that portion of land or utilize the facility in a different manner, where are we going to go? Do you have other facilities that can house 3 to 4 volleyball courts in the city so we can be retained? Just a question, I guess. Wanted to talk a little bit briefly about the budget that's coming up. $650,000 are allocated for potentially building fixes that are going on there. In your closed-door sessions, it was insisted upon by your previous city manager that the building was fine, it was in good shape, and your appraisal of that building at $2.4 million was accurate. What you're finding out now that you're doing more research on it, is that you have minimum $650,000 of repairs to do. So your appraisal was inaccurate. So you're in those closed-door sessions and you're being misled. Whether it's I'm not accusing anyone of everything, but the information wasn't being relayed accurately to the status of the building, nor were your decisions informed. We gave you an appraisal. It had those repairs in it. It also had your library lease in it. All of those things were accounted for in our appraisal, and your appraisal was chosen. I sent that information to you multiple times. It seems like information didn't always go if I didn't give it to you directly. That is why I insist on meeting with you again, directly, not through your attorney. I want to sit down and have a meeting about the lease so we can negotiate, which is why council members Cole and Wong were appointed to do that. I want to sit down and have a meeting so I can hear what you want out of the space and how we can work together on that. That's what we want. We want to be a part of this community. We think we provide tremendous value, and we want to stay here. So we want to work with you on how to do that. If that means the long-term plan of the EDA or short-term or whatever it has for that area being turned into a splash pad and a park, if that needs to adjust, well, we need to sit down and talk about that then. If we are not in the 5-year plan, we need to know now so we can build our own facility and move. But we want to have open dialogue with you, and we want you to be honest with us. That's it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody, I don't think I have anybody else. We have no public hearings, so I'll turn it over to City Manager Frandl.
Thank you, Mayor. First up for city business action items and recommendations is consideration of approval of a resolution approving a conditional use permit and a resolution approving building height variance requests from ISD 622 for an addition to North High School and parking lot improvements. We'll turn that over to Eric Sweber, our city planner.
Welcome, Eric.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me just get the presentation going here. Okay, thank you, Mayor and City Council. So, as was stated, North High School is requesting a conditional use permit and building height variance to construct an 11 classroom addition and make modifications to the parking lot and circulation of the building. So this is the location of the high school. You could see the parking lots both to the east and the west. The conditional use permit is for a request for a total of a 27,000 square foot, 3-story, 11 classroom addition. That is to the west side of the building. On the east side of the building, they're proposing 1,000 square foot security entry. There are also a number of exterior envelope improvements and a number of interior improvements with this. They are also proposing or requesting a variance for a proposed building height. Again, existing condition, North High School is a conditional use within the R1 district located here, generally on the south side of 11th Avenue between 1st Street and 2nd Street. So the proposed includes the 1,000 square foot security improvement to the east side of the high school and the 27,000 square foot, 3-story, 11 classroom addition to the west side of the site. So here's a list of the R1 standards. They are exceeding the maximum height of a 2-story, 35-foot building. One question that may come up is, how did a school like this start, and then now they're requesting a variance? If you look at that east side, the grade is higher on first than it is on second. And if you came into the building on the east side, it's a 2-story building, and it probably would be less than 35 feet tall. As the additions happened and as the building has progressed to the west, it has taken advantage of that grade dropping towards second. So the way you calculate building height has to do with the average grade of the entire building. So as you go to the west, with the grade getting lower, the average grade gets lower, results in the height of the building actually being taller. So again, what part of the Planning Commission looked at when we reviewed the variance was, the original part of the building, the main entrance to the east, is a 2-story, 35-foot building. But as we do the math of the entire building as it grows to the west, we increase that height. So again, this view kind of shows that. The closest is actually the east main entry. The farthest is the west. You see how that grade drops off as you go to second. This is a view of the new security entrance, and then below you see a picture of the existing high school. And then this is a view of the new 3-story addition, and again, a picture of the existing building. So you see the white band and the kind of dark gray N shown on the proposed building. We had quite a bit of discussion that the existing north facade of North High School has a rhythm of windows, and that this north facade of the addition lacks those windows. The school district has their architect here, and they could come up and provide more information, but they testified during the planning commission meeting that there's been a change in building code, partially due to making sure that the building is secure in severe weather events or other items, and that limits what they can do and does prevent them from keeping the full rhythm as exist in the existing building.
So there's no entrance on the west side there then? That's being taken away?
Correct. There is an entrance basically on the north side. So let's see if I can, I'm not sure I can get my arrow. Oh, here we go.
Oh, right. Oh, I see it. Yep.
So there's an opening here, and there's a door that would lead to the sidewalk on 11th. And then there's a door kind of on the parking lot to the south. But there would not be a door facing directly west, but there is a hallway and a doorway between the existing building and the new addition that would provide egress out to the sidewalk on 11th.
So right now, the west side, there's an entrance there for the gymnasium, I'm assuming, so athletics and,
Let's see.
so right now that we're looking at, that would be an entrance on the north side now.
So there's an entrance down here, which is kind of south of the existing building a little bit. It's in this little elbow. So there's an entrance right here.
Oh,
The
got it, got it,
addition is coming out into this part of the parking lot,
got it.
so it is not affecting this
Okay,
entrance.
got it.
And then as we talk about the site improvements and the parent drop-off, that will become more apparent. But, so that western entrance
Was
is
still,
changing.
okay, got it.
So this is the existing site. There's a number of issues. I won't go through them all. They're listed in your staff report as well. But there's a conflict in that the main entrance to the school is on the east side, the student parking's on the west side. The staff parking's on the east. You have that driveway that comes down first and behind the building that provides additional circulation, which interrupts the pedestrian traffic. So what the school district has proposed to help resolve that is to move the student parking to the east and remove that driveway connection south from First Street. So that way, there isn't the vehicular flow in between the student parking and the student entrance. Where First and 11th intersection is, there still would be an access there, but that's a bus access. So the buses will come in, park on the south side of that access, and then head to the east and use the farthest east access that exists today. Between the two, there's currently an access that will be shut off. So for students getting in, they have to use the far west access. And then in addition to that, they're adding a pork chop for the exit on the far west that it would have to be a right-hand turn. So you wouldn't be able to turn left out of this parking lot. And then for the staff parking, that will all be located on the west side. And then you see here on the south, this parent drop-off. Now, Mayor, as you discussed, there's the gymnasium there and other things. It makes a lot of sense that it's there. Also doesn't interfere with the the student parking on the east and the movement of students on the east. So there are improvements to the circulation. But as a result, there is an overall reduction of 102 parking stalls. Since the public hearing in April, the school and the and the city has worked together on a traffic study. And the traffic study has concluded that with the maintenance of that St. Mark's parking agreement, there is sufficient parking with the proposal. When we get to the conditions, I'm just going to indicate there's a condition about having a longer-term agreement with St. Mark's to make sure that that's maintained. So I spoke about some of these already, but there's changes from the existing to the proposed. They are removing one of the two accesses onto Castle, or one of the three accesses onto Castle. The access at 11th and First will become a bus only, and actually only an ingress. Second Street will remain the same, but the circulation around the school would be removed. We did have discussions with the fire chief, and as long as those curbs and that student parking are surmountable, both to be able to allow him to provide circulation, as well as surmountable to be able to park in front of the new eastern entrance, he has all the safety access he needs without having permanent vehicular access for everybody. So again, this is kind of shown in two different colors. As long as these areas are surmountable for the fire department, and then one of the things he was most concerned about is that he would be able to come up and actually park in this area to be able to get as close to the entrance as possible. So the applicant has met with the city, has met with the fire chief, trying to make sure that these improvements still maintain the public safety access necessary while removing some of the vehicular access. So again, a photo of the existing, photo or drawing of the proposed, staff parking, student parking, staff parking to the west, student parking to the east, parent drop-off in that loop closest to the gymnasium entrance, and then the bus drop-off. I will state that there currently is bus drop-off on 11th Avenue between 1st and 2nd. That will be maintained. It just allows more bus drop-off, as well as not intermixing how the students are entering the building with where the bus traffic is. So the Planning Commission actually had recommended 12 conditions. One of them was that traffic study that has been conducted. So we have the 11 conditions in front of you, which are revising the plans to address these comments, installation of at least one mitigation feature. There's 4 of those listed in the full resolution on that north side instead of the windows. Revise the lighting plan. 4 and 5 are other permits as necessary. Number 6 is a stormwater maintenance and easement agreement. 7 is to implement signage and wayfinding to assist people navigating through this revised site. 8 would be to continue to work with city staff on bicycle and pedestrian improvements, trying to provide other ways to get to the school than just through cars. Number 9 is stating that additional sewer access charges may be due. 10 would be maintaining a 5-year parking agreement with St. Mark's. And then finally would be compliance with the conditions and specifications of both the traffic study and the city engineer's memo. So that's the first resolution. Remember, there was 2 requests, the resolution for the conditional use permit, and then the second one is the variance, and that only condition is, maximum height of what's being proposed, 3 stories and 41 feet. So with that, I would stand for any questions you may have.
Any questions for Eric? Wow, getting off kind of easy.
Well, thank you, Mayor. The workshop helps for that, get some of those questions
Right.
addressed.
I did have a question in regards to maybe Mike or Sean. One when I was down there last, the principal, right out front of, where the bus stop, where the MTC bus stop is. Because it pulls up kind of to that entrance, it can be kind of a hindrance to that people dropping off and stuff right there. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. Possibly talking to MTC to see if they can move that bus stop further away from entrance to the school. I don't know if,
Yeah, the drop-off is right in front of the
It's
school right now.
right
Exactly,
there,
Right there
and-
in that corner.
yep, and I heard that can be kind of a safety issue.
They're supposed to be doing it on times when they're not having drop-off and pickup areas. So, yes, that's probably something we talk with MTC about, too.
Yep, I don't know if we do that or if
No,
you
that'd
do
be
that.
something we would
You
do,
guys
so we could take care of that for you, for sure.
That's the only thing I
Okay.
saw, so.
Great.
Thank you,
You.
appreciate it.
You.
Okay, so there is 2 resolutions.
Correct. And just to add to that, Mayor, the reason why we did that is, in case they do modifications in the future, they may only need to modify one of the 2 requests, as well as if they're out of compliance, they might only be out of compliance in one of the 2 requests. So that's why we're proposing 2 resolutions to keep the 2 code provisions separate.
Okay, so the first one I have is the resolution approving a conditional use permit amendment to allow, is it that one? To allow for the construction of an 11 classrooms addition at the North High School located at 2416th 11th Avenue East. That's the first one. Is there a motion for that?
So moved, Your Honor.
Moved by Councilmember Peterson,
Second.
second by Councilmember Wong. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. And then the second one, resolution approving a variance for building height to allow for construction of an 11 classroom addition at the North High School located at 2416th 11th Avenue East. That's the second one. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Wong,
Second.
second by Councilmember Cole. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Got them both. Thank you. Mike and Sean, thank you very much. Appreciate it. At this time, what I'd like to do, if I could, with the council's approval, is to move item G to item B. And that's for the gambling, because we have the crowd here is for the gambling, and we got a lot of discussion for the other things. So I'd like to, if I can move that up to B, council's okay with that, we'll do that. So hopefully be able to get you guys out of here sooner than later. So City Manager Frandl.
Thank you, Mayor. So next up will be Ordinance Amending Title 11, Chapter 112 pertaining to bingo and charitable gambling. I'll turn that over to Shanna from our attorney.
Shanna, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. So this evening before you, you do have an agenda item to update the gambling ordinance. And just by way of background, this came up because we were introducing the OpenGov system, which moves all of our applications online. So we had just finished updating all of our liquor license applications, placing them on the system, and then we were moving to the gambling ordinance. And as we did that, we noticed that there were a couple of just structural, I would say structural kind of changes that needed to be made with respect to our existing ordinance, just to make it to be in compliance with state law. And so that's what prompted this review of this gambling ordinance. We then had a couple of work sessions, and then the material before you this evening is intended to address some of the questions that arose at the work session. It is simply to provide the options to council to determine what is in the best interest of the city with respect to the ordinance. So what you see before you tonight is a memorandum addressing some of the questions that were raised at the work session regarding the optional 10% fund. Those were just responsive to those questions that came up. And then you also see before you two options for ordinances. One of those ordinances includes that 10% optional fund, and the second ordinance does not include the optional 10% fund. And certainly none of the materials before you are intended to try to, to have the council lean one way or the other with respect to the 10% fund. It was simply done for the purpose of information and to be responsive to some of the questions that came up at the work session. And so that material is before you. And certainly if you have questions about the 10% fund or about the ordinances themselves, please let me know. The ordinance without the 10% fund is designed to be substantially similar to our former ordinance. So to implement that ordinance would not really change anything regarding the process that North St. Paul is currently following. I do want to be clear, I believe the city has been complying with state law, even though our ordinance was not fully updated. We were still conforming to the requirements of the state. And the gambling board would reach out to us when they needed certain approvals, and the city would follow through with those approvals. So I do want to make that clear. It's more of just a cleanup process before we place the application for the gambling license and permits on our website, just to get it in compliance fully before that's implemented. Thank you.
Okay, one question I do have is the 50% trade area, was that in the ordinance before?
It was, Mayor, and so in the ordinance before, the language indicated that use of net profits, it indicated 50% of net profits from bingo and charitable gambling conducted in the city shall be spent for lawful purposes as defined by state law in the North St. Paul trade area. So that language specifically indicated that the net profits that were, that the gambling organizations accrued, 50% of that had to be spent in our trade area. The trade area remains defined in the same manner as it used to be in the former ordinance, in both ordinance options before you tonight. So it doesn't only include the city of North St. Paul, but it includes all of the contiguous cities and our school district as well in that area. And so that is something that's consistent with the prior ordinance. Thank you.
And the other question I have is the $100 fee for application. Was that something that we had before?
I can double check that. I believe that it was the $100 application fee previously, and that's in part because there's an investigation component typically with these applications, but let me just double check on that to see if that fee is currently set at $100. I don't know if our city manager knows the answer to that offhand. Otherwise, I'll just double check here in just one moment.
And I think what I'll do, I'll have the city council ask you any questions, and then I'll open it up to a couple of representatives from the audience.
Certainly, thank you.
So take your time. You're under no pressure.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so our ordinance previously indicated established yearly by city council, there would be a fee. So I suspect it must be within our fee schedule, and I will just see if I can pull that up. No, I'm not readily locating that fee, but I will continue to look for it. And I don't want to hold us up if there's any other questions I may
Any questions
answer.
for Shayna? Councilmember Thorson?
No, my position hasn't changed since the last time we spoke about this. I think it's important that we update our ordinance to be in compliance with any changes from the state. But as far as adding new fees or some new percentage that the city would oversee, I'm against. And if that's something that we want to adopt, that should be done separately.
Councilmember Peterson?
We're not in the business of the gambling, era. The service clubs are, and they do very well with that, and they serve the community because of that. And I would be in favor of not doing that fee.
Councilmember Wong?
I would like to wait a little bit until I hear a little bit more about the fee from Shayna.
Councilmember Cole?
So, first off, thank you for compiling all the information, because I think I was probably the one asking all the questions. Just out of sheer curiosity on just some fact-finding. I'm of the impression that there is one other group that does charitable gambling in North St. Paul, pull tabs, and they do it at, I want to say Sidewinders, Roddy's, and Newman's, or a combination of the two. I don't see them listed in the documentation provided unless that's the White Bear Avenue Business Association.
And I unfortunately don't know if that is one and the same. What I had done to collect that information is take a look at the state records of gambling organizations, and then only looked at the ones that were listed as being in the city of North St. Paul. However, the state licensing person I spoke to did mention that it's possible those records aren't complete. It was just the best set of records they could provide to give us some information.
Okay.
This is what I have, is VFW, American Legion, Bleachers, Sidewinders, Roddy's, Polar, and Newman's.
So who's Bleachers, Sidewinders, and Roddy's?
Who's the,
It's Merrick?
Merrick?
Merrick, which is not on here. So that goes back to my original question of 50% of the funding being spent in the trade area. Can we ask them to show up? Can we find out what they're doing with their funds?
So
The rest of the room is here. We know, we support that.
yeah, and what I would say is I could certainly look into that particular organization and what, if they're doing the same type of charitable gambling that the other organizations here this evening are doing, then they should be regulated by the state. And then the state does, as I'm sure some of the organizations here can share with us, they're very highly regulated. They have to provide their financial information and records to the state. And then they only have specific ways in which they can spend their net profits. Pursuant to state law, even if we didn't have our own city code or city ordinance on the matter, they would still be bound by certain ways in which they can spend their funds. And so in order to sort of audit them, they do have to submit reports back to the state to verify that they've complied with that requirement. So that would be something, that would be the oversight that they would most likely see. In addition, we would request as a city, or could request certainly of individuals who have permits, that same records and documentation that they'd be providing to the state to assure that they were complying with the state regulations and also with the city regulations.
And they are located in North St. Paul. Merrick is. Is it? Yep. Yes. Yep. And they're in the old Weber's building.
Okay. So just again, that because the 50% is a state statute, not a city ordinance, and there's just no information here, I just want to make sure that they're being held to the same guidelines and rules that the others in the city are, and there's nothing in this packet that supports or refutes what's going on.
Certainly, and I don't know from a city staff level perspective, we could certainly check into whether or not they've been an applicant with the city for a gambling permit in the past. And then it could be a question as well for the state gambling board to just better understand why they weren't included on that list. And to just make sure that they are being treated similarly to the other organizations. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think I'll open it up to the audience. Pete, if you want to come up and... Welcome. I know there was some confusion when we had two ordinances that were being brought to our attention, and I think, we haven't voted yet on either one, but I think, the council is kind of leaning towards one than the other, but...
One thing came to mind right off the bat when they were talking about the school here. When I was going to high school, I walked to school every day.
Uphill both ways?
And it was uphill both ways, yes. Your Honor, I have compiled the numbers that we have spent from gambling, and it's divided into three categories. Taxes, spent within District 622, and spent without. You're going to be surprised at this. I expect. The taxes we spent from July of 2020 to June of 2021 was $54,000. That's the lawful purpose taxes. That's the federal IRS excise tax, property tax, and the Minnesota gambling tax. That's only the lawful purpose ones. There's another tax that is taken off before anything. That's called the combined receipts tax. $74,000 last year we spent on that. The other things pale in comparison. The amount of money that was spent within District 622 was $16,532. The amount spent outside the district, $650. Now, you know that this was a very unusual set of years. The within the district expenses would have been at least $20,000 higher if there had been youth athletics, because we sponsor baseball, hockey, and fast pitch softball. We didn't sponsor anything because they didn't do anything. Lots of other things were the same thing. We didn't spend it because people weren't doing it. Our expectation is and always has been that we spend a lot more money inside the district than we do outside. I don't recall in all my time that we ever turned anybody down. We do have a set of priorities. Local requests get higher priority than, say, nationwide ones or statewide ones or whatever. We also do a little qualitative checking. Somebody who sends us a 4-color, multi-page request and whatever is probably not going to get looked at quite as favorably as just a small letter that says we need money. If they can afford to spend that kind of advertising things, they probably don't need our money.
Good point.
I would like to ask you a question. I'm pretty sure you don't have any idea what's involved in the complexity of gambling, lawful purpose things and whatever. Many, many years ago, Bill Sandberg said, you people know a lot more about who should be getting the money than we do. We don't think the city ought to be involved in this. I agree with him. We spend a lot of time investigating solicitations, checking that they're okay, they're fine. I should mention another one of our priorities is the more people who are benefiting from something, the higher, the more closely we look at it. We get a lot of requests. I'm a high school junior in Roseville. I've been invited to play in an all-star baseball game, and please send me to Florida with $1,500. One person. That doesn't get a lot of attention, but we did send a whole German class to Europe with their teacher because it's a horizon expanding experience, and I think it was 20 people benefited from it. We have always tried to be good corporate citizens. We have supported a lot of things that the city has put on. We would have been sponsoring the Silver Lake Lifeguard Program if you'd had it. We did last year and the year before. Other things like Jan Waslake's sidewalk art thing and the farmer's market and stuff, we have supported all those things. We don't like the idea of somebody telling us we're going to decide who is doing it, because you run the risk of raising some real hackles. If you take that 10%, people are going to be asking you for money. And if you say, oh, I'm sorry we gave it all away, or we don't have it, you are going to have some very angry people probably calling in the news media and who knows what all. Why would you put yourself in that kind of position?
Yeah, and again,
We're
Pete,
taking that heat
yeah,
now.
and I don't think that we're going to be doing that. I mean, I don't want to say what the council is going to do, but at our last, in our workshop, I think, I think it was a workshop that we talked about it, that the only reason that the 10% was brought up was because of this guy right here, that he just wanted a number of what that looked like. So,
We have those numbers.
right.
Yeah, and I've got them, and thank you. That was just sheerly curious. There was 131 cities, I believe, that were.
Right, there's a lot of cities that do it.
And I was just curious as to what the size of the, the dollar amount was, and
But Pete, we, as a council, everyone appreciates all that you do, and I don't question who you give it to, because you guys are the ones, who should be making those decisions and not us. So, we really do thank you for your efforts and what you do. On the tax side, we have no control over that. Don't yell at us for
All right,
that.
but just remember that once that tax is taken out, it's not available for supporting ball teams or whatever. I'm going to mention one more thing. We are a veterans organization. One of our main functions is supporting veterans activities, like the Veterans Rest Camp on Big Marine, the Vets Home in Minneapolis, this department commander that each year has a project of some kind. This year, the commander is Barry Hendrickson from White Bear, good friend of ours. We're going to be giving him money. Guess what? Those are all outside of District 622, but they're all veterans organizations,
Yeah, that's why we got,
which is what we do.
sure. But we have to have that 50%, 50% can go out and 50% stays in.
We are always well within that.
Right. No,
And
and we're not questioning that, so.
Any questions of me?
Pete, thank you very much.
Thanks for your time.
Really appreciate it. And all you veterans, appreciate it.
thank you.
Jim? I don't know if Shana has your answer yet for the $100.
And Mayor, members of council, what I understand now is that the $100 in the former ordinance was intended to be a penalty provision. What the old or the current ordinance, without being amended, states is that there would be a fee established yearly by city council. However, as I look over the fee schedule, I don't see any fee specifically assessed for gambling permits. And then the other component of our current ordinance is that all charitable gambling operators are subject to a background check, and that is completed by the North St. Paul Police Department, also at a fee set by city council. And I don't see a specific fee in our fee schedule for that component of it. So unfortunately, I don't really have a good answer other than that our current ordinance permits city council to set the fee rather than stating what the fee is. And it states that there is an investigation fee, but it does not say what that fee would be either. So, thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Hopefully that helped a little bit, Jim.
Mr. Mayor, City Council members, Jim Salsho, speaking on behalf of Knights of Columbus, Council 4967, and we meet at Church of St. Peter here in North St. Paul. And I've been the person that's applied for the bingo permits in recent years. And we don't fall into a lot of these categories because it's called an excluded bingo permit. And we have never paid a fee, either here or to the state. It's just a formality that I submit, and I believe submit, and then the police chief gives it the okay. I take that and then take it to the state, and then we get our permit number, which we've been doing now in recent years. So when I did see this, I don't think any of the other things about the 10% and the 50% apply to us, because on an excluded permit, you only can have like 3 bingo games a year. And we had at maybe most 2 since COVID-1, if maybe none. So what caught my eye, of course, was the new $100 fee. And of course, as you know, the Knights of Columbus does donate generously to the food shelves and other things in our area. So I would just ask you to reconsider and to strike that from the new ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it, and appreciate all that you do. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. I'm Eric Allness. I'm the gambling manager at the North St. Paul American Legion Post 39, Afghan combat veteran, and our address is 2678 7th Avenue East. Please come by anytime you want. We'd love to have you there. It's never a good time to raise taxes, and you can say this is a 10% fund, but it's really a tax. But in the wake of COVID, I think it's extremely harsh. And I appreciate the sense I'm hearing from the committee, but I just want to mention that as we look at our clientele, there's still people who have not come back because of COVID. And in light of the Delta surge, we don't probably expect to see them for a while. So it is impacting our business. On the other side, costs continue to go up. We look at it just next month, pull tab prices that we buy from the distributor, and that's who we have to buy from law, are going up 8%. So the games that we sell, it's going to be a little less that we make on all those. I'm also sure you see, as you go around, you see all these ads that people want to hire people. And Walmart, I think I saw the other day, they're starting to offer $18 an hour starting wage. Well, that impacts us too, and we want to keep the good people who have already worked for us, so we have to look at increasing compensation again. So again, our costs as a business are continuing to go up, and any type of increase in taxes would really hinder us. In fact, if you look at the taxes of all kinds, it's very consistent with what Pete said. That comprises of 81%, approximately 81% of all the lawful expenses that we have. And an increase will further our limit to accomplish our charitable mission. And if we look at it, out of every dollar we bring in, we get about 2.5 cents that we can actually use to pay people and to do for our charitable mission and so forth. So it's a very little amount that we have to give. And if there was a 10% increase in it for us, that would cut down our charitable donations, really where we have flexibility to give, by about $30,000 a year. So that'd be money, and that would cut it in half for us. It'd be half, so we'd only give away half what we could do right now. And the bottom line, if it did come around, we'd have to have serious discussions whether it's worthwhile for us to continue doing this charitable mission, because with all the work and efforts and volunteerism in it, the return on investment, frankly, is getting quite low. On the community side of things, the 50%, as we look at our charitable mission, it's to support veterans, our community, veteran, and youth. As such, if we follow our charitable mission, and we do very well, there's really no need to further regulate our efforts. Last year, more than 90% of the donations were made in the local community. And most of the requests that we get, we turn down a lot of requests. We're getting a lot of requests from national organizations, statewide organizations. 90% of those, I'd say, and that's a swag, are probably turned down because they're not fulfilling our charitable mission, which is a North St. Paul mission. Those that are outside really still have strong community connections. You know, already talked about Veteran Campground. Both the VFW Legion and Ramsey County have membership on the governing board of that organization. So it is really linked strongly back here to the community. Secondly, the Servicemen Center at Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport, another place we donate to. Again, strong connections back to community and to the state, allowing places for service members from the community to go and have a respite before they go off on flights, or for units that are deploying or coming back, there's opportunities, or in transit, for them to stop and use those services. So it's really good for our units. And the last one is Minnesota Assistant Council for Veterans. Those are probably the three biggest ones that we give to outside our area. And as I'm sure you all know, they just built a house right here in North St. Paul, right next to Veterans Camp, to help take care of veterans in the community. So I think we're doing very well on that. And the bottom line, would just love to continue doing business as we are, supporting the community and doing right for our citizens. Thank you. Any
Thank you, Eric, appreciate it. So we get an idea where everybody's spending their money now, which is good. We got you up here, telling us where all the money's going. But again, I want to say that from the council, from our workshop a few weeks ago, we were pretty much asking for staff to look at two proposals. One was the 10%, and one was keeping things status quo and pretty much updating it to state statute. And I think that was the kind of the spirit of the council at the time was going to be that proposal. So with that, I think we do have two proposals in front of us. I think the $100 fee, I don't think it was there before, so I think if the council's okay with taking the $100 fee out of this proposal. And then the other one would be the background check, but I think that is a fee that was probably in there before. And that's for, can you explain that again for the background check? Is that for someone who's going to be managing or is that for anybody applying for a?
That's a good question, Mayor. As I review our ordinance, the proposals before you actually don't set a fee for a background check within it. It just sets that $100 local permit fee. So we can exclude that certainly if council would like to do that. However, the rest of the language before you this evening would not require a formal background check. And just in reviewing our previous application, I believe that what typically occurs at a staff level is that the police administrative assistant would receive the application and conduct their review, but perhaps it sounds as though they weren't conducting a full investigation or background check of these organizations, as speakers here tonight have indicated, and that there wasn't a fee associated with then that review. And so in my view, it seems appropriate to perhaps just leave that issue silent and not kind of adopt a background check process unless council sees fit to do that. But it sounds as though the process, the way it has been working, has been no fee for any kind of really intensive background check for these organizations.
And I assume the organizations themselves do a background check in regards if they were to hire a manager or someone. I don't know, Steve, do you guys?
I believe the state already does that.
State does that, okay, yeah.
And Mayor, that is, I would just say that the state does highly regulate this industry, and so our city code provisions are really just meant to line up with the state oversight, but we're not really truly the body that does the most investigation for these applications, so it makes sense to me that they would conduct their own background check at that level, and we wouldn't necessarily get involved at that kind of detailed level. Thank you.
So I think if we were to take out the $100, council would be okay with that. Is there anything else on there that you can think of that we talked about? The 10%, I believe, that's going to be gone. We're not going to vote on that unless we could do that.
And Mayor, just to be clear, I mean, you can certainly entertain a motion for an ordinance that excludes the 10% fund and excludes the $100 fee. And then I will work with our city clerk to make sure that you have the right version for signatures.
Or we could just table it right now and you could rewrite it and then bring it to the,
That's what I was gonna recommend, that we just table it, bring it back with bringing it into state compliance, no mention of a 10% fee and no of a 10% contribution to a city fund, and no mention of
$100.
and then we can just vote on it in a consent agenda item and we're just coming into compliance with what was written by the state.
We certainly could do it that way. What I would mention is just as we were sitting here discussing matters, I thought that perhaps that was the direction council was going, and so I did create a version that accomplishes those things.
Okay.
However, if council just wants, just for the sake of making sure we're all on the same page, certainly you could table the ordinance and then take a look at it on a consent agenda and then adopt it at that time after you've had one final chance to review the language and just make sure it's what the council would like to see.
Well, I think with the group here, hearing what you're saying, I think they'd be okay with that. Pete, did you have a quick question?
There was one other part of the ordinance, and it said that we would have to furnish all records to the city. Do you have any idea what volume of paper you would be getting?
Is that a truck or is that a,
Well, we do, in a given month, between 30 and 40 pages of paper. Now, for every organization, it'd be over 100. Who's going to handle all that?
well, I don't know if that was something that was in the previous ordinance. I don't know.
And Mayor, if I may, the previous ordinance indicated that there would be an annual accounting on or before February 1st. Each licensed organization with a local permit would submit to the city manager a copy of the 12 monthly reports submitted to the board as required by state law on an annual basis. So it did have that component. I'm not sure if in practice that was occurring perhaps, or if we want to.
Well, you said acquired by state law. Is that a state law that's supposed to happen?
So these organizations provide their records to the state in
Okay.
accordance with state law, and then our current ordinance rather indicated that they would also provide those same 12 monthly reports to the city. Perhaps it, for ease of administration, it could be certainly you could consider adopting a requirement that records would be produced upon request. I mean, to the extent you would want to have city staff checking for any compliance issues that could arise, that could be an easier method of doing it rather than affirmatively requiring all organizations to submit those reports. But I just wanted to note, the current ordinance does technically require that submission to the city without a request.
So I guess I would like to table it, and if you can put that document back together with those emissions, and then for them to require reporting to the city, I would say exactly what you said, that upon request, if we were to need those documents, you would have those available for us.
One more, Your Honor.
What?
In the District 622 area, the ordinance says you have to pay 50%.
Yes.
I've never seen any kind of thing that says 50%. They usually say up to, or no more than, or no less than, or at least 50%. So if we gave away 53%, we'd be in violation of that ordinance,
So I think
wouldn't we?
that, well, yes, but I think in the past, this is years ago, we talked about this. There's a lot of cities that is 100%, 75%, where we kind of brought it down to 50%, knowing that a lot of your, especially the service organizations, give outside of our trade area. We took away the 622 components, so it encompasses more of Oakdale, Maplewood, and North St. Paul. So,
The argument is with the 50%.
yep, so the 50%,
If you said at least 50% or no less than 50%, okay. But just a flat number like that is,
oh, 50% has to go?
pardon me?
Are you saying that 50% has to go outside the trade? We're saying at least 50% has to stay within the city.
The ordinance doesn't say that. It says 50% must be spent in the district. What
Well, I think what we're trying to get across,
they say is that at least 50% needs to be spent in here, or no less than 50%. Otherwise, if you did 51%, you'd be in violation. Right?
Mayor, members of council, if I may, we could certainly insert the words at least 50%, and it wouldn't change in practice, what has been occurring at the city level. Certainly, I understand the concern with the language. The city wouldn't view it certainly as a violation to spend more than 50% of an organization's net profits to benefit the trade area. I can see where the concern is, but we could certainly address it by inserting the phrase "at least" prior to 50%.
Okay, we'll do that. All right, I think that will work, and we'll have that on the agenda for our next meeting. It will be the consent agenda, but we'd like to get that to the organizations just to have them review it.
Certainly, and Mayor, members of council, I can work with city staff, and if the organizations would make sure to provide contact information, we can certainly provide the new copies of the ordinances in advance. I would also note that just pursuant to Minnesota law, we always post those ordinances at least 10 days before adoption so that the public can be aware. So that would also be on the city's website if, in the event, somebody did not receive it through city staff level.
Okay.
Thank you.
And if you guys got any questions, once that is written, reach out to any of us, council members or myself. So thank you all, and we do really appreciate it. In the spirit of the council, we want you guys to be the donators of your funds. So. Thank you for your attention. Yeah, thank you. Do we need a motion for the table it?
Yes, that's a good point. Please entertain a motion to table the ordinance, and I will
Okay.
work on that update as discussed this.
Motion to table the ordinance, gambling.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Thorson,
Second.
second by Councilmember Cole. Any discussion? Not all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Oppose, motion carries. City Manager Frandl.
Thank you, Mayor. Next up is the proposed 2022 City General Fund, EDA, and HRA budgets and property tax levies. We'll turn that over to the Finance Director, Dan Winnick.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. We can go into some detail if we want to. This is the first of 4 items that are very much related to the budget and the budget discussions that we've had over approximately the last month and a half. I first of all want to thank the City Council very much for the dialogue that we've had. There was a lot of tough decisions to make, especially during this time. I think we just heard one of the members in the last item when they're talking about that the pandemic hasn't ended with the Delta variant, and then also they're also seeing the difficulties in retaining staff. In needing the compensation, which we addressed as part of our concerns, and the continued rising costs. So the item that's before you right now is approving of the proposed 2022 City General Fund, EDA, HRA, and the budgets. These are maximum levies that you're going to be approving. For the city levy, it is up 5.99%. If you remember where we left off last Tuesday night with the additions that were, and the additions from the decisions that were made brought us to approximately 6.7%. I talked to interim city manager Frandl the next morning, and what we did was we allocated a position that's in community development that is actually doing work for both HRA and the EDA, and allocated some of their costs. So that's what resulted in bringing us down to the 5.99%. Again, Councilmember Wong, that's within that ratio of what we were seeing for the averages for the municipalities in Ramsey County. In addition, I think one of the questions one of the council members had asked recently was how was the city of Oakdale? On last Tuesday night, they proposed, they haven't passed it yet, but they in their workshop, they were at 6.99%. So I think when we look at the overall budget, we are at about $7.9 million for the city's general fund, which also includes debt service. We're asking for a tax levy of approximately $5.8 million. You'll see in the whereases that we are doing a lot of different things with our debt service to drop that down. If you remember, that's part of the reason why we were able to add a number of items into our budget. The second item tonight, you're going to hear about the first of the debt components that we're going to be doing, and that's going to be refunding of some bonds and saving the city some tax dollars over the life of the bonds. In addition, it's going to help reduce our levy in 2022 by approximately $55,000. And then we've got set for the end of this year, we're going to be doing a recalling of a bond. And then we're going to be, item number 3 that we're going to be talking today about is of adopting the 22 to 31 capital improvement plan. And the fourth item to actually authorize to start getting that work done to actually authorize the street and utility improvement projects that are included in that CAP budget that is being funded with a bond that'll go out in early 2022, which the debt service is included in this budget. So both the HRA and the EDA levies, we are certifying the maximum that's allowed underneath Minnesota statute, which results in approximately 8.78% increase for each. Again, a reminder that these are the maximum levies. We will not approve until December 21st the final budget, and so we still have time to be looking at the budgets and making reductions if we see the need to do that. Also, this item is asking for a motion to set the 2022 Truth and Taxation meeting for Tuesday, December 7th of 2021 at 6:30, basically the regular city council meeting. And then the intent would be that the following Tuesday, the 21st, we would actually approve all of our budgets and levies. If there's any questions with this item?
Any questions for Finance Director? If not, the first one I have is for the resolution adopting the preliminary 2022 general fund budget and setting the preliminary 2022 general fund tax levy and debt service levy. And that equates to the 5.99%. Correct?
Correct.
Is there a motion?
So moved, Your Honor.
Moved by Councilmember Peterson.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Cole. Any discussion? Councilmember Thorson.
Yeah, I know we discussed this in detail at the previous workshops, but I'd just like an opportunity to briefly explain why I plan on voting nay on these. There's just some things within the general budget that I just don't support. Not to take away from all the work that staff has done and on those areas that I do agree with, but specifically the increase in the council pay, which eventually I understand we're gonna have to vote on. The allocation of funds to the community center, I just think that is spending good money after bad. I think it's in our best interest to sell that facility, and that, you know, we're not utilizing some funds within public safety, to my opinion, appropriately. I think we need to address the first responder program funds and the weekend shift that's being allocated to that, and look at addressing our needs for additional police officers and their role in responding to medical calls. I don't support an increase to the HRA. I believe we have sufficient fund balance to continue to operate.
That's a different.
I understand that. I'm just saying it now, so I don't have to say it again. And then the EDA, same situation. I think we have sufficient funds to continue to operate, and especially their requests to now get into the business subsidy programs and looking to hire staff. I mean, if the plan was to do a max levy to save that funds for future redevelopment projects as they come about, that might be something I can get behind, but just for those reasons, that's why I intend on voting no.
Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Oppose?
Nay.
Motion carries. Second one we have is the resolution adopting the preliminary 2022 tax levy for the North St. Paul Economic Development Authority, and motion to approve that.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Cole. Second by Councilmember Wong. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose?
Nay.
Motion carries. Third one is a resolution adopting the preliminary 2022 tax levy for the North St. Paul Housing and Redevelopment Authority.
So moved.
So moved by Councilmember Wong,
Second.
second by Councilmember Cole. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Oppose?
Nay.
Motion carries. And the fourth one is setting the date of the truth and taxation. Was that a letter number here? I don't have that resolution.
There actually is not a resolution that's attached. I think you just need to make a motion to set that date.
Okay, motion to set the truth and taxation for December
7th.
7th.
At 6:30.
So moved.
Was it?
State the time, 6:30.
Yep, 6:30.
6:30. So moved by Councilmember Peterson,
Second.
second by Councilmember Thorson. Any discussion? Not all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 That would be here at the council chambers on December 7th at 6:30 PM. And motion was approved. Okay, City Manager Frandl.
Thank you, Mayor. Next up is set the sale date for the 2021 refunding bonds. I believe, Dan, are you speaking to that?
Yes, this item that's before you is to have you approve the authorization of the sale of refunding bonds. And so how this all came about is as we're doing the budget, and I think everybody's aware that interest rates are really low. I'd reached out to Baker Tilly to find out if we had any refunding opportunities, and they came back with this as an opportunity for us to be able to look at. The end results of this is that we are going to use city funds that are available in this debt fund right now to be able to pay the equipment bonds that are associated with this. And over the remaining life of this bond issuance, it'll save us approximately, I think it's $148,000. And in addition, it reduces our debt levy up in 2022, and then moving forward, approximately $55,000. But I have Terry Heaton here if she would like to add some additional comments and also to ask any questions that council may have.
Welcome, Terry.
You can sit right here if you would like.
You can sit there in the...
Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, and thank you, Dan, that was very kind. And the chair is warm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that was a very good summary. The refunding is the 2014 A bonds, and there are three components. There was an improvement bond component, utility revenue portion, and the equipment certificates. And so all of those components are being refunded for savings. In total dollars, it's about $273,000 over through from now until 2030. And the present value part of that is $141,000. And so it's a strong refunding. It will, the bonds would be sold on October 19th at 10 in the morning, and then come back to you in the evening to get approval for the low bid. And the part of that process will be seeking a rating for the bonds from Standard & Poor's. The city's current rating is a AA+, and going through information so far, we don't expect that to change. And in light of the pandemic and everything else, we look like you're in strong shape. So I think with that, we're looking forward to hoping interest rates hold. They're at a 50-year low. They're creeping up a little bit, but I think we're hoping bonds sell this fall, that we can go ahead and capture the savings. And actually, we'd like to see those stay in place until we finish all the bond sales that Dan talked about.
Good.
So with that, happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Terry? Not, thank you. Is this happening in a lot of cities? Are they going through this process of selling bonds?
Yeah, both new bonds and selling bonds because of the low interest rate. We
Right.
did, we've been tracking yours every 6 months and bringing these forward, and so this is perfect timing on this bond. They become callable February 1st, 2022 for the first time. And so it's probably the most efficient time to sell those bonds, and the fact that the interest rates are cooperating makes it all the better. But yeah, it's still a great time to sell bonds.
Good, good. Thank you. So the motion is for a resolution providing for the competitive negotiated sale of $2,525,000 in general obligation refunding bonds. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Thorson,
Second?
second by Councilmember Cole. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. City Manager Frandl.
Thank you, Mayor. Next up is to adopt the 2022 to 2031 capital improvement plan. I believe City Engineer Morgan is going to be speaking to this.
Thank you, Brian. Actually, the first item I think that is up is going to be Dan's, and then I'll follow in short order. So I'll turn the floor over to Dan.
Yes. The item before you is to adopt the 2022 to 2031 capital improvement plan. This has been presented in our budget discussions. I believe this is the first time that the city has actually had a truly comprehensive capital improvement plan. I think what's been before the city council in the past has been more relating to the street and utility improvement plans, which are incorporated into this, and Morgan will speak to in the next item. So this is really looking at in getting you to adopt this plan. Again, I envision that we'll be taking this forward every year because obviously there can be priorities that change. But this is kind of a roadmap of how we're going to be looking at doing some long-term planning for building up and replacing our infrastructure and taking care of our vehicle and equipment replacement within the city. This all plays a very important part as we're looking for budgets in the future. And if you remember, there's a tool that the city already owns that we're going to be updating and hopefully have that later this fall to have some very intuitive and what-if scenario discussions with the city council and showing the different impacts that it has on budgets in the future and also on the rates that we're charging for the various utilities. So this item really kind of sets that stage and gives us the information to be putting into our future planning. So if there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to take them.
Any questions for the Finance Director? question I do have for Morgan and maybe Shayna is the Planning Commission was looking at seeing this before we adopted this. What are your thoughts? Are we able to adopt it and then have the Planning Commission, look at it, and we can still, I assume, make changes after the adoption? Is there a need to see this right now to use for budgetary numbers? I'm assuming that's kind of what, the reason why we need to approve it sooner than later, but.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I can speak to part of that, and I'll certainly turn it over to Shayna as well from a legal perspective. So as has been done in the past, and staff was certainly preparing to do this anyway, as presenting probably what the Planning Commission is most interested in, not all the aspects of the capital improvement plan. As Dan mentioned, this is a much more comprehensive CIP than what the city of North St. Paul has had previously. But what their main interest is conformance or interrelation of some of the street and utility improvements or, infrastructure investments that are proposed within that plan and how they might interact with land use, planning and zoning, the comprehensive plan as adopted, maybe other planning documents as adopted as well. So that has been reviewed by me personally, I believe 2 times prior, and so the idea would be that at the next planning commission, if Eric can fit me on an agenda, that I would do a similar review. Past performance, I guess, is an indicator. There's an opportunity for questions and answer by the Planning Commission. There weren't significant scope changes, but certainly, direction for staff or recommendations to staff to look at particular things or see if particular things could be implemented or how they might, be referenced in terms of, the ultimate end result for final design, plans and specs, bidding documents. And that's always direction that I would take back to the design staff to make sure that we were adequately looking at that, and if it needed to be reported back to council when we would go for any sort of further authorizations for bidding, for example, that would be something I would report on at that time. So that is the plan, I believe, and Shayna will have to, confirm this, but I believe the council can adopt and review, and any sort of, input to staff can be made following adoption of the CIP by council, but I'll let her confirm that.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, members of council. I would agree with that assessment. There is the ability to move forward with the adoption of it. Certainly, it makes sense to consult with them on components of, especially as it relates to zoning or planning matters, to consult with them and ensure that they have input as it pertains to projects that they would typically review. Thank you.
I just don't want the Planning Commission chair to be mad at me, so. Or you. So the resolution is in front of us unless somebody wanted to table it, but we do have the resolution adopting the 2022-2031 capital improvement plan. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Cole. No second?
I'll second it.
Second by Councilmember Peterson. Any discussion? Councilmember Thurston.
Yeah, I guess I would prefer to have this reviewed first by the Planning Commission before we move forward to adopt it, but, I don't know if people are comfortable tabling it or not, but I can certainly just vote no and move forward with having them review it after. I just think it's important we follow our established procedures, and they're supposed to review this first, so it should be first before we approve it.
I would second that, to table it just for, process, and we have commissioners that contribute a lot of time and energy and have brought this to us, and I think it'd be fair to allow them to view it before we make our final decisions.
Okay, so we have a motion, and I'll do the same. bring it back, but we'll vote on it. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion doesn't carry, so we'll,
That was easy.
nobody said anything, so.
Nobody said anything.
We'll bring it back to the planning commission.
Yep, so if I have my dates correct, the next planning commission meeting would be Thursday, I'm sorry, October 7th. So then this item would be back in front of council for adoption at the Tuesday, October 19th council meeting. And just a staff-to-staff question, is that okay from your standpoint, Dan?
So I have a question. So the next item to authorize the 2022 street and utility project improvement projects, which actually will authorize to actually start doing some work. Is that going to then be held up because of this? Part of the reason why it's coming here, and I realize that it's kind of out of order, and I would, I guess, recommend reconsideration of the last item, is because we're trying to chase after those fantastic interest rates, and getting the work to actually start identifying the scope of the projects to get it to a biddable document. We're trying to get out into early 2022 to be able to bond, sometime in January or February. So anytime, we were already pushing a pretty tight schedule to be able to make that accomplished. And I think you just heard from Terry Heaton with Baker Tilly that interest rates are ticking up a little bit. We hope that they hold moving into the future. But any uptick in those interest rates, or if they go much higher, then we'll end up having to cut down our bond issuance and the amount of work that we can actually do to meet within our debt service that we have in our budget.
And those two tie together. You can't approve one and not the other one.
Yeah. To me, yeah, and I think the piece that is more objectionable on the last item of the CIP is really the street and utility improvement projects. Because traditionally, you've never seen the vehicle, and the Planning Commission hasn't seen the vehicle and the equipment replacement schedules and so forth. It's really that street and improvement component to it. Now, I'll make a suggestion. If we can approve this, the city council can always ask us to bring this back and adopt a revised CIP plan, based upon if the Planning Commission has any changes that they do and it has an impact. So in the CIP plan, it really just has dollar amounts and kind of a quick description of what the work intent. It doesn't go into any further detail than that. But if there were items that the Planning Commission decided that to exclude part of that street, we could bring it back. And have the city council then adopt a revised 2022 to 2031 CIP plan. Does that make sense, or?
Well, I need either attorney, legal, or
Yes, thank you. As we were further discussing this, I had an opportunity to further review some of the various legal requirements as it relates to capital improvement. And it does appear that it would be proper to hold off on adopting any capital improvement plan until the Planning Commission would have an opportunity to review that. So I do apologize for that confusion earlier with my earlier advice. I had been relying upon the city code, which doesn't explicitly say that we would have the Planning Commission review that capital improvement plan within section 3257, but it does appear to be more consistent with our usual process, as it sounds, and then also with state law to hold off on the adoption until that Planning Commission review has occurred. Thank you.
city engineer.
However,
A footnote.
so the next item for council consideration was assuming that we would have an adopted CIP as contemplated by the item that you're currently on right now and considering tabling. And I would say from my standpoint, or staff would support, obviously, if that's the process, and it's happened differently in past scenarios. I think in the past it's happened after adoption. I can't recall exactly. But in looking at it in terms of this being a late start, so from my perspective, in terms of being able to ramp up and have things ready to go, certainly for pre-presentation to City Council to review scope and what's included in the project areas, et cetera, to take it to the next level above lines on a map. You know, today, late September, that's a very late start already. I don't know if you recall any of the past projects, but we would be authorizing preliminary work in like April or May to prepare for the following year. And part of that in this situation is indicative of the fact that, you know, finance director is taking a holistic approach to the process and including many different aspects here. So one potential thing to just take into consideration is that if we're starting work on investigation and design, for example, late into October, we may be somewhat hindered by potentially temperatures, potentially snow on the ground in terms of picking up survey information. If the council would consider giving some authorization, you know, the first whereas in the resolution in the second item after this one could be stricken, and there could be some opportunity to move forward with some preliminary work, knowing that we'd be back in front of you in October for potential full adoption of the CIP after the Planning Commission has had an opportunity to review and weigh in. But at least that way, staff would have some ability to start, maybe preemptively, but the amount of work that would be done in that 1 month period would not be substantive in terms of defining the core details of the project. That would be back in front of the council for authorization prior to any sort of, you know, real movement or, you know, going out for bids, for example. So that's an option that I would at least recommend to take advantage of the fact that we are late in the year. And the later we start, the later we finish. And I know that the finance director's concern is being able to capture the bond market as early as possible next year. So knowing that we need to move forward, and we need to move forward efficiently and quickly, that would be something I would offer up for the council to consider as you potentially table this item and move forward to the next agenda item, which, other than the fact that the first whereas references that the capital improvement plan has been already adopted, and that maybe that language could be modified by the council if it so wished, that's something to take into consideration.
So we'll be looking at taking out the capital improvement plan part of that motion? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, that for, I don't know, the agenda item. For the next item on the agenda, that would be something that I would propose as a possibility. And if we want to reformalize that, this same resolution again as a replacement resolution to include the whereas such that it references the actual adopted CIP at that time, second meeting in October. Again, we could do this again to provide more clarification, if that makes sense.
Mayor, members of council, if I may, there is a procedure in Minnesota statute 462.356 subdivision 2 that does permit the council to approve a capital improvement by a 2/3 vote without first having the planning commission review that capital improvement. So to the extent that that's what you're considering doing this evening, provided there's a 2/3 or 4 out of 5 members voting in favor of that, that would be authorized as a way to avoid that planning commission review, just simply for that that project that we are discussing, not the entire capital improvement plan. Thank you.
So we have two options. One would be to approve the capital improvement plan based on a two-thirds vote, or just to move things forward.
An individual project, right?
Sorry, and we're just, I believe that the recommendation, perhaps, given our, so the capital, just to clarify, the capital improvement plan would need to go first before the planning commission. However, it sounds as though there's a need to address some more urgent projects before the winter season sets in. And to the extent the council would wish to just approve individual capital improvements regarding the streets, you could do that by a two-thirds vote.
Got it.
And that, so what Shayna just mentioned there, that is in reference to the next agenda item. I don't have the numbers in front of me, I apologize. Agenda item 9, Roman numeral 9E.
E.
And currently we are on Roman numeral 9D.
Currently, we're on E. Because we passed on the capital improvement plan.
My
Then
understanding,
we moved to E.
correct. I believe that the council tabled, moved and tabled and approved tabling that matter.
Correct. So we're looking at E, and that would be specifically a project or two projects. And what are those projects? We would need to specify those projects and then get a motion.
Correct, and so that's the next agenda item, which I haven't yet presented, but the resolution is in your packet, and we can start from scratch. If we've tabled officially the capital improvement plan.
We did that already, so.
Okay.
So we're at E.
So then I'll turn it over to Interim City Manager Frandl for introduction of item E.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes. Next up is authorize the 2022 street and utility improvement project. We'll turn that over to Engineer Dolly.
Thank you, Mr. Frandl. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, as we were just discussing, so this next item before you did originally contemplate that the previous agenda item would have been adopted by council. However, as we had some discussion previous, and as the city attorney had just mentioned, there is an opportunity for you to give authorization to the city engineer to keep moving forward with preliminary investigation and study on some of the project areas, which council has reviewed before in workshop and budget sessions as identified in priority and have been reviewed by the finance director in terms of financial feasibility, if that's the right way to put it. They're also included in the 2022 to 2031 capital improvement plan, not yet adopted, but certainly under consideration and scheduled for review by the Planning Commission at the next Planning Commission meeting, which I will be at to take their feedback and direction. And so what staff would propose is consideration of the resolution that is in your packet with the recommended amendment to strike the first whereas, which indicates that the capital improvement plan has been or had been adopted at this particular meeting on September 21st. So that's an incorrect statement. And again, for formality purposes, once the capital improvement plan has been adopted by council, I think that staff would include another resolution that would be very similar, but also would reference the actual adopted plan at that time. So again, we have project areas and estimates that have been previously reviewed by council without exception, as my understanding. And the 4 project areas which are specifically called out in that resolution is the 7th Avenue area between Helen Street, just east of Helen Street to First Street, and a portion of Helen Street adjacent to that as well too, including alley work. So that project would bridge some of the improvements that were completed in 2020 on 7th Avenue west of First Street, and then also east, as I mentioned, of Helen Street. Then the second project area includes the public surface parking lot and alley that is south of 7th Avenue between Margaret and Charles, including 6th Avenue, again previously by the City Council. The third improvement would be the joint improvements with the city of Maplewood on Ariel Street as a 50/50 owned roadway with the city of Maplewood. That would be by a formal joint powers agreement or other similar agreement that will be before the council. Past projects, we've done that about January timeframe. But this authorization would also allow staff to continue working forward with the city of Maplewood staff, who would be the lead contracting agency for that project. We would be simply supporting information and design for the city of North St. Paul owned infrastructure included in that project. It's Ariel Street between the cul-de-sac south of 11th Avenue north to 17th Avenue, and then also some associated roadways that have already been included in Public Works' maintenance overlay program that are just adjacent to try to capture some economies of scale along with that project. And the city of Maplewood staff has indicated in preliminary conversations with myself that they're amenable to that sort of work being included in their contract. And finally, the fourth improvement would be some water main improvements that have been previously identified. Number one, an area of North St. Paul owned water main that is actually in the city of Maplewood on McKnight Road, which is a Ramsey County road, north of Beam Avenue up to County Road D. That is a stretch of problem water main, but also that's being timed to be in advance of Ramsey County doing an overlay, not an overlay maintenance, but a full overlay of their county road and McKnight Road in that same area, so that we don't have aged water main and risk of water main breaks under a brand-new overlaid county road. The overlay for Ramsey County is scheduled for 2023. And also some additional water main issues that we have just west of the high school on 2nd Street, 10th Avenue, and I believe 3rd Street as well, too. So those are the bulk of the four projects that have been previously included in that potential 2022 project list. Nothing has changed. Staff hasn't changed or included anything different. The maps are the same. There are a couple other maintenance components that would be handled either by Public Works or just a simple sewer lining activity or contract similar to past sewer lining contracts that would be actually eligible for Met Council I&I grant funds, which we've leveraged and utilized on all past sewer lining projects. So that would be the plan with this one as well, too. That's not specifically called out in the resolution because that's more as maintenance work similar to the maintenance overlay work that's also included on the map but is conducted by Public Works independent of engineering primarily. So that's a summary of the improvement areas. And again, if it would be amenable to council, I think that council could certainly give that authorization for work to start.
And all these projects wouldn't be started within the next 3 weeks.
Well, we've been preparing and needing to get started like yesterday, so.
Okay.
Waiting another month would be slightly problematic from my standpoint in terms of just laying it out for council.
Okay. Take a breath. So the motion would be to the resolution authorizing preparation of preliminary study plans and specifications for the 2022 street and utility improvement projects, and we would take out the first whereas that this capital improvement plan would not be part of that, but the rest of the motion would be there. City Attorney, is that correct?
Yes, and Mayor, if I may just make one clarification. As part of the 2/3 vote to dispense with the requirement that the Planning Commission first review the capital improvement, the City Council does also need to know that when they vote in that manner, they're also making a determination that that capital improvement has no relationship to the comprehensive municipal plan, and such that, given all the circumstances that have been laid out before you this evening, that you find it appropriate to do so without the Planning Commission review first. Thank you.
Okay.
We will still review it with the Planning Commission.
Correct.
Yep.
Right.
That still will happen.
Okay. Any questions for City Attorney? If not, motion to approve the resolution, taking out the first whereas. Is there a motion? No motion? No motion. So I guess we're gonna wait on the improvements.
And Mayor, if I may, certainly the council, if it's not desiring to approve the resolution, it may be appropriate to either table this or to deny the resolution, to entertain a motion to either table or deny it, depending on what I suppose makes sense from a review standpoint, if you wish to have it back on a specific date, or if you'd prefer to just move forward with denying it this evening. It's up to council to make that determination, but generally some action on the agenda item would be preferable. Thank you.
A motion to table? So moved by Councilmember Cole. What?
I have a question.
Oh, question. Go ahead.
Based on the timing needs that Finance Director needs to move forward, based on the preparation and planning and where we are from a standpoint in the season and the construction season, my ask is, can the Planning Commission have a special session next week in which all this can be presented prior to their 10/7 date so that we will be able to then bring this back in front of council in 2 weeks?
Oh, got another one.
Well,
City planner.
I think there's one question for me and one comment. I have no ability to query the planning commission at this time to know if we would have a quorum. So I can't answer that we can't. I can say that tomorrow I will do my best to try to rally the troops to get that done. The second comment I would have is, I guess maybe I'd turn to the city clerk, but do we have any legal posting issues of getting the meeting posted tomorrow? So sounds like if I can find out from the planning commission that we'll have a quorum, we can do that. But I don't know that I have a quorum until I have the opportunity to query them.
So we've got 13 days in which to have a meeting so that it can be posted 3 days prior to the next council meeting. I guess is the way I'm using my logic here to take a look at that. We're based on the issue that we have to make a decision versus protocol versus timing. And I guess I'm trying to figure out a way that we can bridge both and keep everyone happy. Otherwise, I'm fully in support of going back and removing the whereas so that we're not stopping one project and we can keep everything else moving. We can keep one portion of the CIP moving forward.
I would agree. I mean.
So I didn't give it, it didn't help, but.
So either we'll have to have a meeting first part of next week, or, yeah, it have to be next week sometime before the next council meeting. And then on the 5th, we would bring this back.
Is the posting 3 days, business days, or just 72 hours?
It's three business days.
Sorry? Okay.
Oh. Okay, so we will table it then? And then we'll get the planning commission to look at it and then bring it back?
I'm comfortable with that if there's I'm comfortable with that as long as there's confidence that they feel the planning commission can have a meeting next week. Otherwise, I would like to move this portion of it forward. So I guess I look to planning commission, the planning commission liaison, as to their comfort levels with where we stand and your opinion. I mean,
Councilmember Wong?
Yeah, given the timing, I believe I would be open to the compromise of moving this portion along, considering the whereas is changed. And then that the planning commission does have some opportunity to review the remainder of the CIP, but to move this forward, I would be okay with it.
So we can state the resolution again to move it forward. So the resolution is authorizing preparation of preliminary study plans and specifications for the 2022 street and utility improvement project, taking out the first whereas. And that is eliminating the capital improvement plan part of that motion. Is there a motion for that?
so moved.
Moved by Councilmember Cole.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Wong. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Yeah.
Motion carries.
And
Did
I voted
you voted yes?
yes.
Okay.
so thank you for working together on all this. I know this isn't normally the way that council wants to move forward, but I think with respect to everything that's gone on in the past 6 months within this building, I think we just got to do what we can to move, at least keep the ball moving forward, and ask for forgiveness from the planning commission on overstepping our bounds slightly, and that this is the exception, not the rule, so thank you.
Right, I would agree. All right, City Manager Frandl.
Thank you, Mayor. Next up is consideration for approval of a resolution approving a conditional use permit for additional accessory outdoor storage for Century Avenue Collision Center. And I will turn that over to City Engineer Dolly.
It's a planning item.
That's going to be under Eric Weber, sorry.
Thank you.
You don't look like Morgan at all.
We,
Need a
Morgan
haircut.
and I have a long history of working together, so we often speak. All right, sorry, just trying to get my presentation up here. Thank you, Mayor and City Council. So the request tonight is from Century Avenue Collision Center, and it is for a conditional use permit for outdoor storage. My next slides will go into more detail of it, but it is located at 2501 Division Street North. So Century Avenue Collision Center has about 4,800 square feet of outdoor storage today. They've stated in their application that they are having issues with thefts of parts that are on vehicles that are outside of that outdoor storage area. So they are requesting an expansion to about 9,600 square feet of outdoor storage. The site is zoned MU3. So here is a picture of the existing site. You see in the back, there is a couple of vehicles within what is the current outdoor storage. So the property is zoned MU3. The current site and building complies with all the standards of MU3. What we want to kind of parse out here is the collision center is a conditional use within the MU3 zoning district. This is not a request to modify the principal use, the auto repair. But I just want to clarify, we don't have a record of a CUP for either the business or the outdoor storage. But the request is for outdoor storage, which is an accessory use. So essentially a use that's accessory to the principal. So we're reviewing the accessory outdoor storage. We're not reviewing the principal use of the collision center. And I'll go into more detail about that as we apply the code. So the most prevailing section of the code here is the standards of outdoor storage. There are 3 here. First, that it's located outside of the front yard setback. Second, that it is screened from all public ways. And then third, that it is screened by a wall, solid fencing, or other materials, and that the screening shall be 6 feet in height. We'll go over at the end of the slides specifically how these are addressed, but a couple things to specifically call out is that they're completely screened and that the methods are a wall, solid fence, or evergreen hedge. So shown in kind of that maroon color is the existing 4,800 square feet of outdoor storage. The applicant is planning on repaving their driveway and would be paving the additional 4,800 square feet for the new total of 9,600 square feet of storage. Again, the proposed use is the existing fenced-in area, and then the additional area would be for storage of cars and machinery, and the enlarged area will be mitigated through the solid fencing, or more specifically, the chain link fencing with vinyl slatting from 12th and 13th Avenue. So this is a picture of the proposed fence. The applicant has stated that it would be similar, but they will not be rehabbing or saving the existing fence. It will be a completely new fence, but in a similar manner to the existing 6-foot fence with vinyl slatting. It needs to be compatible with the surrounding area. It is directly east of the senior housing development. It will contain the 8-foot tall vinyl fence with privacy slats, and that the use and appearance is compatible with the adjacent property. They are not proposing any changes to their parking, and the outdoor storage is not affecting any of the existing parking. As I stated, the principal use isn't changing. That's how the parking calculation is determined. So there is no increase in parking based on the increase of the accessory use of outdoor storage. This will not generate any additional demands on public facilities. Landscaping is tied to the principal use, and since they are not proposing to increase the principal use, the applicant has not provided a landscape plan. There's no major changes proposed to the drainage area, so, but even with that, we want a condition that they obtain approvals from any other appropriate agencies for drainage and/or any other permitting requirements. There are no alterations to the pedestrian ways. There's no alterations to the access or circulation of the collision center. There are no proposed changes to their existing lighting. So again, these are the 3 specific requirements. The front yard for their property would be abutting Division Street. This is located on the west side of the building, so meets that condition that it's outside of the front yard. It needs to be completely screened from adjacent streets, public walkways, and public parks. That is proposed to be done through the 6-foot chain link fence with plastic slatting. And then finally, the outdoor storage is to be screened by a wall, solid fencing, or evergreen hedge. And so you can barely see it kind of behind the landscaping, but it would be similar to the existing fence of a 6-foot fence with vinyl slatting. There are other plans in place here, one of them being the redevelopment master plan, and this is within the Commerce Park redevelopment district. That plan states that improvements can be made to private properties to remain competitive in the short term. In addition to that, because of no improvements to the principal building value wouldn't increase, wouldn't cause any additional impacts to potential redevelopment scenarios in the future. So the Planning Commission conducted a public hearing, recommended approval with the two conditions shown. The first being what we stated about earlier, that all other appropriate permits be applied for and granted. And second, that the fence shall be a chain link fence with vinyl slats, and that fencing and the vinyl slats be inspected annually, and any damage to the fence or the slats be repaired within 30 days. So with those two conditions, we're conditionally recommending approval of this this resolution, and I stand for any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Eric?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mayor, I would state the applicant is in the audience, so if you do have any additional questions for him.
Any questions for Eric or Jim? Not,
Just a comment, seems like a lot of red tape just to put up a little extra fencing. And thank you for
Been a
sticking
long
out.
time to sit at a council meeting.
Thank you for sticking out the entire meeting. That's it.
okay, and I think we worked good with the property owner. Jim, I think we worked good with you and getting this kind of through the process. So,
Mayor, could I
Yep.
expand on Councilmember Thornton's? So we looked quite extensively on the way the existing code's written, but this is not the only way to write a code. There are provisions that you could put a threshold of an expansion that under that threshold, it could be approved administratively, and only over that threshold is it required to come through this work. So that's an option. But in kind of carrying that thought, we're looking at this as the accessory use. They're doing a 100% expansion of their accessory use. My plan would be to bring this to the Planning Commission at a future meeting, have that discussion, but understanding on how the code would apply this is a 100% expansion of their outdoor storage. But that being said, I take your point, Councilmember Thornton, and I certainly plan on having a discussion with the Planning Commission in the future of providing some sort of a threshold for administrative approval of an existing use.
So the motion is a resolution approving a conditional use permit to allow for up to 9,600 square feet of outdoor storage at Century Avenue Collision Center located at 2501 Division Street North. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Wong,
Second.
second by Councilmember Thorson. Any discussion? Not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Good luck, Jim. City Manager Frandl.
Thank you, Mayor. Next up is to authorize the purchase of police squad computers and police handheld radios. I'll turn that over to Mr. Winnick, our Finance Director.
On behalf of the police chief, I'm going to talk about this item. So in our last Tuesday's meeting on September 14th, in our city council workshop on the budget, we had talked about 3 different items that the chief of police had brought up. One being squad computers, and the other being handheld radios. And we kind of identified tentative funding sources for those. He has gone out and gotten quotes utilizing state master contracts. The pricing is in line with those state master contracts, and the bids are attached. And so the first item is Squad Computers. The vendor that's on the master contract is Baycom. They represent the Panasonic Squad computer that he's looking at. He's got a quote of $43,084, and that is attached. And then for the handheld radios, he's looking at 20, if you remember the quantity that both the police department and the fire department were looking at. So off of the master contract, Motorola Solutions is the vendor. And for 20 handheld radios, it comes to $92,951. The funding source for these would be the police squad computers would be the forfeiture fund, and the police handheld radios would be the equipment fund. If you remember, they were identified as 2022 items for the handheld radio. We would just move that up and utilize the funding, and after 2 years, it would basically be a wash. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Any questions for Finance Director? Not, the motion is for a resolution authorizing the purchase of police squad computers and police handheld radios.
So moved, Your Honor.
Moved by Councilmember Peterson,
Second.
second by Councilmember Thorson. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. City Manager Frandl.
So we're looking to move to agenda item H and speak to that. That was tabled or pulled, the development contract.
Okay, so we got item H, development contract and plan unit development agreement for the 7th Street Townhomes. And Councilmember Thorson?
Yeah, I just, I'm trying to understand, why something like this would be overlooked, seems like, especially, it's a pretty big project. A lot of work went into it through the Planning Commission. Modifications were made. We actually had a lawsuit that went along with this, and now to come to see that there was no development agreement. I mean, I'm just looking for an explanation as to how and why that happened and what assurances we have moving forward that things like this don't happen in the future.
Thank you, Councilman Thorson. I do apologize, this was a little before my time for actually being able to discuss what the reasons were for not having those signatures on that contract before moving forward. What I can say, though, that is Lisa Ritchie has put a lot of work into this, and she has gathered the appropriate signatures and parties and collections of the fees to get us up to speed where we're at right now, and develop an escrow account for moving forward with the developer. Beyond that, I can't speak to the reasons why that wasn't procedure wasn't followed, because they are in place and they are normally followed.
And because this wasn't followed and work has already begun, there's a contribution to the park and dedication fund, and then that escrow deposit that would help pay for those initial street and utility construction. Is that was absent? Am I to understand that, leading up to now this being signed, and then those funds will be coming in to pay for those things? Is that correct?
That is correct. I think I'd like to turn this over to Engineer Dolly to discuss this further.
That's correct. So the original intent of the agreement, as I believe originally drafted by the city attorney, and then again, apologies that, procedurally that agreement should be signed and on file before the first building permit is issued, and that is what did not happen. So that's the control and the leverage that the city would typically hold in this situation, is that until the developer's agreement is fully executed as approved as a condition by the city council when the development was approved. But the core of the agreement remained unchanged as it was discovered that the signed copy did not exist. And so all of staff's efforts in going back in terms of working the developer to collect the securities and the escrow amount and the park dedication funds, et cetera, are as originally approved or intended within the agreement. We did make some acknowledgements of the fact that some of the city infrastructure that was originally included in the agreement and was to be secured by letters of credit was completed and inspected by the city and accepted by the city that was done, and so therefore did not need to be secured by a letter of credit. But that was really the most substantive change in terms of the final agreement that was reviewed and signed by the developer and then ultimately to be, considered for approval by the council here tonight.
Any other questions for city manager? If not, the motion is for recommendations for the city manager and mayor to finalize the agreement by signing the contract. Is that what I'm reading here? So motion for that.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Thorson,
Second.
second by Councilmember Wong. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. City Manager Frandl.
Thank you, Mayor. For reports of the city manager, I'd like to just report that we've had a couple of concerns come in about contractors starting a little earlier than our designated time. Those hours are supposed to be from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday and 9 to 5 on Saturday. We have reached out to some of those contractors, and sometimes it's not the contractors themselves, it's a contractor that they hire to move heavier equipment out to the job site that they tend to get there a little earlier, so we put those reminders back out, and we have reached out to our contractors to remind them again to please keep in mind the working hours and the neighborhood at that time of the morning with the loud equipment around. Also, just want to report too that the last of the 3 buildings left at the M&I development, we just got approval for energizing another 4-plex and a 6-plex. That only leaves 1 unit left for getting energized, and so that's project moving right along.
1 unit or 1 building?
1 building, excuse me.
1 building.
1 building, excuse me, yes.
Wow. And how about the project just down below the hill there? That seems to be moving really quick.
Very quickly, yes. We were out there, we had to unfortunately move some underground power lines that we had in the way over there. But we got that done today, so that's all good to go. Wasn't too much of an issue. We have pulled in the wire over there for setting the transformer for the permanent power. But that project's moving along very fast as well.
Good, good. All right.
And that's the extent of my reports.
Thank you. Reports of council commissions, committees, Councilmember Cole.
We have a Park and Rec meeting tomorrow night, 6:30, City Hall, I believe, Sandberg Room. A couple key topics are going to be rental fees and deposits. We did not have a quorum at the last meeting, so hopefully we'll have a quorum and be able to bring that information to the October meeting to be able to discuss rental fees and reenact the deposit. As well as we're excited, we have an Eagle Scout presentation about wood duck houses to be put in, and city working with locations and qualifications for him to earn his Eagle Scout.
Councilmember Wong.
Yeah, in terms of the Planning Commission, I guess some upcoming things would be a review of the CIP. And then in the last meeting on September 16th, 2 commissioners were selected to represent on the task force for the redevelopment master plan, and that would be Vice Chair Monge and Commissioner Gelbman. We had Tom Sonic join our Planning Commission for a brief introduction, so there is intention to collaborate between Planning Commission and the Arts and Culture Commission. And then in terms of timeliness, it came out to be really just is going to work because we are coming up on our sign ordinance. And when we talk about arts, there are some things we may need to discuss in terms of definitions. So in terms of the Arts and Culture Commission, Trudy Onsorg was nominated the co-chair. And currently, they're in the process of planning, going through the process, defining scope, and kind of building that foundation for the Arts and Culture Commission. But I believe the direction at this point is to look at a couple high-impact projects, maybe visual arts, whether it be a mural, so kind of looking at that in the beginning stages. And that next meeting for that commission is on October 6th.
Councilmember Peterson.
Yeah, I went to my policy meeting for the league, and that was concluded last week about on revenues, and we just talked about different disparities with cities and housing and racial equity. And it was a good, it was a 3-month meeting, and well, not 3 months, but 3 hours a month.
It's a long meeting.
9 hours. That's great. 9 hours.
Feels like this.
Yeah, this is a long one, too. But no, that was good. It was beneficial. I have my League of Minnesota's retreat in Winona coming up. Looking forward to that. Kind of get to network with the new board members. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. And then EDA, we just mainly talked about the parking lot behind K&J in the building that we did not get on the old knick-knack shop. We did not get that, so went back to the owner. So they have control over that. But we did talk about in regards to what that looks like in the back there, and possibly we talked a lot about electric cars too, and what that looks like for our future. General business, Councilmember Cole.
I don't really have a whole lot, other than the fact I'm looking forward to Thursday night, fall roundup, looking forward to the parade. Staff has done a phenomenal job ensuring the fact that it's going to be the biggest and best parade the city's ever had, so big thank you to her.
Councilmember Wong.
Apparently, Councilmember Cole says I'm going to be in the parade, so I will be in the parade. But other than that, I don't have any other things to add.
Councilmember Peterson.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention St. Mark's will be open for the police to stop by to take a break with food and beverages that we'll provide. Wednesday night is the best night to come because we do a community dinner, and there's always good food then, and I did tell that to the chief. So those guys that are working on Wednesday night, go down, chow down at St. Mark's Lutheran. We have a good relationship as well as the school district, but the city and St. Mark's has a very good relationship too. They open up their doors just to get a break from not going to Holiday. Nothing's wrong with Holiday or Quick Trip, but just to get, they can relax there. There's, like nice soft chairs, and it's just a different place for them to, relax on break. And I want to extend a thank you to the Legion and the Veterans Park and the VFW. It's always a moving parade on that Missing in Action, or the POW. Every year I look forward to it. It's somber, very quiet, but I think they did a nice job, and I really give them a lot of credit.
I think it happened to be one of the windiest days of the year.
Yes. Well,
And everyone up there making a speech either had somebody to hold their speech
Paper,
or
yeah.
it was flying off the.
but that's the weather. That's the weather any time of year at that Veterans Park. But it's a beautiful setting, and I'm so proud of that park, and Terry had a lot to do with it. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Councilmember Thorson. Yeah, the parade was just a well attended too, and it seems to be getting bigger and bigger every year.
Communities don't do it.
Right. So I'd like to shout out to Councilmember Peterson for showing up and being a part of that. Last car show is this Friday. We'll get through it, and hopefully it's going to be a beautiful night. And St. Pete's Fall Festival is this weekend. That's on Sunday. Carrie, remind me, is it, what are the times? 9 to 4. So come on, and it's all going to be outside. Nothing's going to be inside. In the parade this Thursday, need somebody to buy the candy. Candy?
I'm donating my 4 bags, they're in the car.
You got some candy? So we'll, I guess the council will, each one maybe grab a couple bags of candy and,
We've done in the past.
what's that?
We've done that in the past.
Everybody bring their own candy? Okay. Yeah, and I think, Carrie, shout out to you. We got over 100 units at the parade, and it's going to be a big parade. Now we just need to get all the residents down there. So if you're Thursday night at 6:30, come on down to downtown. You'll see a great parade. Other than that, anybody else? Any last minute? If not, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Peterson. Oh, we got an HR meeting real quick after this.
Trying to get out of here. No.
So moved by Councilmember Peterson, second by
Second.
Councilmember Cole. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Meeting adjourned, and we'll start the HR